Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Pharma Decrypted webinar. Today I have the pleasure and the privilege of welcoming Cristina Finazzi, who's the Director of Customer Experience at Novartis, and she is particularly involved with medical congresses. That's why today we're going to talk about going back to basics with medical congresses. So, Cristina, we met about a month ago at an event, and I believe that you have been extremely busy, June being one of the biggest Congress season. Tell us what happened since we last met.
So first of all, hi everyone, and thank you very much, Sabine, for inviting me. I am very passionate about this topic, as you know, after our chat in Dubrovnik. So it has been indeed a crazy month for me. We had 4 congresses in 2 weeks. So we had 4 major events running at the same time. We had EULAR and IACI for immunology. We had ERA in renal. And we also had EHA for hematology, being EHA, you know, the biggest event in Europe in that field. So a lot going on. What I love about the Congress season is that it's like the merry-go-round, it never stops. So you have these weeks where, you know, everything is happening, but the preparation work starts almost 6 months before. And then, you know, we are already down for the next peak of the season, which is going to be between, you know, September and October, with ESC kicking off end of August for cardiology. And then, you know, other big events like ESMO. So, you know, a lot going on, a lot of passion, a lot of discussion on how we can get the best out of these events, where I think that collectively we are reaching out, you know, almost 150,000 delegates across all the most important congress that I am working on. That's, you know, doesn't look like the million impression you get on social media, but it's real people, you know, present on site. So it's always cool.
Can we say there's an element of quality in the type of engagement you experienced during those congresses?
Oh, totally. I think that this is the thing, right? So I frequently hear people, you know, comparing the omnichannel and the social media strategy to the actual event. And of course, I feel that we like omnichannel and we like, you know, digital so much because digital is great in giving you quantitative feedback. It's also easy to track. You get KPIs, you get everything. It is much more difficult to get real quantitative measure of a congress. I think that the holy grail is, you know, and what is the ROI of a big event like a congress, you know, and no one in the 20 years I've been, you know, doing this job is ever able to provide a certain enough answer out of that. But to your point, a lot of it is about the quality of the engagement. It's about the uniqueness of the environment. And I think it's about the most valuable currency we have in the relationship with our doctors, and that is trust. And trust is not something you can download. It's not something you can delegate to AI. It's really something that is nurtured by personal relationship, by human contact, by speaking with people, not only about the data, but making people feel seen, making people feeling heard. And this is what a Congress does better than anything else.
And can we infer from your analysis of, you know, the benefit of going to congresses and organizing them that potentially congresses are one of the major drivers for changing HCP's behavior, particularly around prescription, but not just that, it also helps deepen the understanding of the disease area that you're focusing on. I mean, is that a fair analysis, that change behavior can come more easily from an in-person congress experience rather than the digital that accompanies it?
I am a big believer of that. That was actually the key topic that I presented in Dubrovnik. I really like to reference Professor Berger's work. So I think that, you know, frequently we ask the wrong questions. So frequently we ask why we do a congress, or why the congress doesn't change, or what is the ROI of a congress? And similar question, you know, the stuff, right? But in our industry, there is only one thing that matters, and that thing is, are we improving clinical practice and are we changing this behavior? Now, the work of Professor Berger is showcasing what are the barriers of changing a behavior. And he has this structure that he called the reduce framework, where you see that there are, these components that are what is stopping you to change behavior. So the first one of that, and I think is the one where the Congress is performing really better than anything else, is reactance. So the more you push, the more people push back. Yes. So the harder you try to sell, the more they resist. And this is human nature, it's not even healthcare. And if you think about our omni-channel toolkit, literally every channel you have in your omni-channel toolkit is a push. The Congress is the only place where is a push. So we are not going to the doctors. The doctors are there. They are coming to us. They are voluntarily stepping into our symposium, into our booths. So that is a radical shift of the relationship, right? They have the mental space. We are now trying to squeeze in between patient visits or a busy schedule at the hospital. They are there to learn. They are there with the curiosity of that mindset. And then there are other things, right? Like distance, how big is the change you are asking them to do? And the bigger the distance is, the more difficult it is to change behavior. So, but then when you are in a Congress and you are hearing, top KOLs or other peers of you that have done that change already, this distance becomes shorter. Then you have
can we say that is what's so unique about the Congresses, is that allows you to impulse change behavior in a much shorter time frame than when you do it any other way. Is that a fair analysis?
I think that the nicest part of it is that it's not even the industry shaping the behavior of the Congress. So the last piece of this framework is corroborating evidence. What the Congress gives you is social proof, yes? And this social proof is not coming before a big healthcare industry is providing this. But the whole community is there together. And this is what is giving this signal that this is a broader thing, right? It's not a top-down communication coming from one single company or one single individual. So yes, I think it's the perfect environment because ultimately the Congress drives change because peers are discussing change among each other. And this piece of discussion is what we are missing on the digital component. It is super valuable. I'm not saying that we don't have to do digital. Actually, I think that is fundamental and a pillar on how we create, an engagement strategy around what we share. But we need to acknowledge that the Congress does something quite unique that cannot be reached via a phone or via a laptop or via an email or anything like that.
Okay, so that's very convincing. So, everybody nowadays talks about AI is going to change the way you do business, but I have the impression that your view on the role of AI may be quite nuanced compared to the dominant discourse, which says AI is going to allow us to do so many different pieces of evidence turned into digital story that are going to be able to be shared across all our channels that it's almost as if the Congress doesn't matter as much. And that's only the dominant discourse. I don't believe everything that's being said online. So tell us more about your views on that. Where does the balance lie in terms of the actual engagement activities and tactic? Is AI really useful around Congresses at all?
So can we be brutally honest and admit that one of the reasons why we love AI so much is because we see AI as a source of cost saving and a source of speeding up content production, which are great things. The thing I'd like to put at the table, though, is that these are great things for us. I don't think, how little we spend or how much we spend or how fast we produce content is something that our doctors care about. And I think that the other component is that given that it's great that we can produce more with less, I think that we might be facing a problem around the quality of the content that gets produced. And actually, this will be my future LinkedIn post that I already programmed for Monday. There is a super recent article from The Economist that is showcasing how in the past 5 years, the amount of content production across industry spiked up. From books on Amazon, for example, or amount of lawsuits that have been done by individual people without using a lawyer, leveraging AI. And it's actually super interesting. It's even about, music production that then you can put, on Spotify and do some money. What we are actually seeing in this other industry is just more noise.
Yes.
And this type of more noise is actually creating consequences for the system. One consequence is that you have decision fatigue. So you have so many books to choose from, and it's even more difficult for the qualitative one to stand out. Then the other consequence in the legal aspect, for example, is that all these additional lawsuits that are filed are clogging the system. Because on the other side, you still have humans that actually need to make the right decision and tell you if you are right and if you are wrong, and you are going to win. And I feel this is one of the risks we have, that we are focusing on producing more, but I am a big believer of less is more. So
So I was going to ask you about that, because in the first part of this discussion, you mentioned that the quality of the interaction is what mattered during the Congress. And can we say equally that the quality of the content that you share, possibly before the Congress, to warm people up, is that something that people need to pay more attention on, and that may mean fewer pieces of content, but higher, more inspiring pieces of content using storytelling. Like this is what we do, at Science Pod. We always tell stories around the evidence or around what we believe will help the healthcare professional in their clinical decision making, because they're at the center of the attention after all, not because it's convenient for you as a company to churn out X number of omni-channel campaigns across all of your channels. I mean, do you feel strongly about this, the quality element?
I feel super strongly, and I think that this is again the other problem with AI. So I think that, let's say about 1 year ago or 2 years ago, we were under the impression that the tool would constantly improve, that the quality would constantly increase. And I understand why we had that impression, right? That this would be a vertical line going up, because the model has been trained on high quality human work. But now the model gets trained and retrained by content that is also AI generated. So what is happening is that I feel AI is great to create average content, but average won't do the job. Like the more noise you have around, the more distraction you have, average is not going to break it, Average is not going to give you what you need. It's not helping you achieving your goal. And it's also not helping the doctors, I think we also tend to forget that the whole healthcare system went through a massive shock during COVID, and it still has to recover. For sure, we have seen, increasing burnout rate for doctors, increasing waiting list time for patients to access doctors. So is this what they need? Is this, more content, more expectation? And I think, I was checking data on actually how doctor feels around AI, because I'm debating if doing another keynote in the future. And actually, it's interesting. Some of them are actually worried about AI. That, with this idea that AI is doing more, is helping you to do more, that they ultimately will end up taking care of more administrative tasks. And if you look at what happened in corporate, it's the same. More digital and more technology just meant that the number of stuff you didn't do before, now you have to do it. So again, I have mixed feeling. I think it's a great tool with high potential, but I believe when it comes to healthcare that the real value of AI is in the early stage, helping you finding, the next great drug, helping you, testing market research. Like, it's more on the quality of information you get more than the content production you get.
So interestingly, you mentioned that the quality is going down all the time, but there was a court case recently in Germany whereby Google was found guilty for not being accountable of the quality of the information they put in the AI overview, and they even were held accountable for the fact that there was misleading or false information being shared on this AI overview. And this is a massive turn because, as a pharma industry executive, you know full well that the pharma industry has been held accountable for the health and safety of the products that they put on the market. But the tech industry has been getting away with murder, designing addictive algorithms and things like that. So are we possibly seeing a wind of change in this kind of all AI kind of rhetoric? Towards something a bit more balanced, where people who do put out those AI tools may have to rethink the consequences of spreading misinformation or false information.
So I think this is super interesting. And we have seen that with social media, right? So for social media, for 10 years, everyone was like, oh, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. Let's take a picture or 25 pictures of my Aperol spritz. And then we are starting to realize the damage that this is, bringing, especially to the young generation or to kids. So I think that what we are facing here is what I like to call the AI hangover. So the enthusiasm, the natural enthusiasm for something new that has this big potential to cover, and the velocity of change there is so fast that we are all having FOMO, yes? I kid you not, the next time that I'm going to see a LinkedIn post saying, oh, PowerPoint is dead, Claude just did da-da-da-da-da, I'm going to stab my eyes. Because I'm done with this narration around, you are missing out, you need to learn more, this is creating tension, And then there is the other piece of anxiety, which is, oh, AI is going to take all your jobs. So there was this AI hangover where we are all running, trying to catch up and make sure that we are on top on things. But as you pointed out, healthcare is an highly regulated environment. I don't want to say problem, but what we need to acknowledge is that regulation, policies, these are slower in happening, but they are starting to happen strongly. So I can see companies starting to ask, okay, it's true, we can produce a full campaign with AI. Do we want to use AI avatars to represent the patient? Maybe yes, maybe not. Maybe we are hearing patients say the way you represent us in your campaign is not realistic. Will this get worse if we use AI avatars that are not real people? So what I'm seeing is that after this initial hangover, we are all starting to breathe and starting to pose the right question and start to put ethics at the very beginning. To your point, we have big responsibility here in what we say, in the information we share, in how we make patients feel, in providing the right service to the doctor. I think it's good. I'm really looking forward to have these conversations that are meaningful and are also, helping us understand that just because something is cool doesn't mean that you have to, implement it across everything.
For sure. And so getting back to the idea of cultivating trust during medical congresses, can we say that still technology has a role to play to warm up your audiences before your medical congresses, and possibly, digital communication still has the role to play after medical congresses? What's your views on that in kind of embedding communication before and after those real life engagement?
I am a big believer of that. I think you need to build the excitement, and I think you need to support message recall. And of course, the Congress is fundamental, and that's something that nothing else can do. But then, a big Congress happens once per year. So what for the next 12 months? Exactly. I mean, it just happened 2 weeks ago. And then so what? We forget to say anything about hematology for another 12 months. It doesn't work like that, yes? Also, you have, again, we go back to the tool, the omnichannel toolkit you have. So I think that there is a piece around technology, and there is a piece also about your field force on how you are creating this surrounding noise and surrounding opportunities to reinforce the message across 12 months. But this is also where I think that we have been designing the omnichannel journey maybe a bit wrong. We tend to design a line, right, from January to December. And I do this channel here, here, and here, and then there is the big event, and then I do this channel. So it looks like a line. Mm-hmm. One of my ideas is that I think we should design it differently, where actually the Congress is a circle that is spreading a ripple around. So it's not like a linear journey. It's like the Congress is the place where you have the big data release, where you have, the in-person opportunity. And then, everything is expanding because you are building on that content before the Congress and after the content. And that is fundamental. It's also about, using the Congress to gather insights that you can then use to personalize the communication and give customers what they really are looking forward to get. Are they more interested in the quality of life? Are they more interested in data? Are they more interested in real world evidence? So how you do that and how you build excitement. In one of the market research I've done before starting this job, it came out quite strongly that they are starting to planning their agenda for the Congress 2 weeks before the event. So you really want to optimize that window, making sure that you get a slot in their calendar, right? That they come and speak to you. So again, it's not either or, it's more how we create a system where the two things live together so that we get the best out of all the toolkit and all the channels that we have in our toolkit.
And my impression on that point is because we've been talking to so many, events people, medical affairs manager, commercial people as well, is that they completely underestimate the amount of planning and organization that goes in for you to be able to deliver a seamless experience. And I'm sure you, of all people, have something to say about that, because it's quite startling. There's a lack of awareness that things don't happen 2 weeks before. They need to start, as you said before, 6 months before, and possibly longer, a year prior.
Oh, totally. I think that the other thing that we are missing sometimes is, so when a customer look at us, we are just the industry, that company. For us, we have silos. You have commercial, you have medical, you have international, or you have global, and then you have the countries. My take on it is that there is not such a thing as an international customer. The customer by nature is always local. So I've been hearing for 12 years that our goal is to do a seamless customer journey. We have heard that also at Next, in Dubrovnik. We always talk about creating this seamless customer journey, and looks like we always fail. We fail because the system is very broke down. Sometimes it's siloed because of compliance, right? You don't want the commercial and the medical to mix up. So there are reasons behind that clearly we have not been able to solve yet. But also there is this component that we think about our content, international content, but then if the country doesn't localize it, it's still going to be a very small touch point, So I think that my dream will be a day where I will join a pharma conference, and instead of hearing people on stage saying, because we need to do a seamless customer journey, I will hear someone say, and we deliver a seamless customer journey for our customers, I think maybe I can help there because, it can help us with dashboard, tracking all the touch points. I do hope that AI will help us there, in optimizing the process and the system, but I honestly feel we are not there yet.
Okay, well, work in progress. Rome wasn't built in one day, as people say. So in order to conclude this very nice conversation, I'd like to ask you my last question, which is about whether you can share with our audience what's the latest trends in medical congress engagement tactics that you've witnessed attending all these congresses this month and the previous months?
So I would say that, I go back to that AI hangover that we had at the beginning, and I had two, right? So I was part of that. Ooh, let's try it. So I think that, for example, last year, we were all very keen in testing AI to create some cool engagement activity inside, for example, Good Experience. I used AI, for example, to try to measure KPIs. So you can, use AI to figure out a neat map of your booth, where people move, how people move. And then, there was a moment last year where we even thought as an industry that AI could be an attraction for itself. Like at ECTRIMS last year, there was a company with a big advertising saying, oh, come at our booth and try this AI activity. And I feel this is, going past it. Not that we're not using AI, but we don't feel that AI is going to be an attractor for itself. So what I'm actually seeing is that there is still a lot of space in a Congress for what I like to call the vintage tactics. So there is a lot of space for analog, for tactility, for cool objects that attract the eyes, and then they are so cool that people stop by, take a picture because they want to post it on Instagram. So I think that there is, a lot of space for this. At the same time, I'm seeing, companies going bigger and bolder in the past few years on the out of home. And before it was just the out of home, around the Congress Center or inside the Congress Center. And now I'm seeing a lot of this happening, advertising at train station, at airports, advertising in Uber. And of course, this is different. All of this cannot be branded content, but this is building up on your broader reputation as a company, because then you can target, almost in Europe, right? You cannot do advertising to patients or non-prescribers. So it's building up, your reputation as a leader in the space. And I think that's interesting. But again, I'm a marketer, so I'm always more keen to see pieces where we can do the branded content. Yes. So this is what I...
That's amazing. Would you believe that in the past we have underestimated the power of unbranded content, telling the stories of the patient, telling the stories of the disease, explainers, but not necessarily just explainers, saying how our understanding of the disease has deepened over the years, which has helped us provide solutions that are more pertinent or more targeted than previously. I mean, is there something that was missed in the early days because we're so focused about sharing the data, whereas actually in order for someone to change their mind, they need to have an idea of the context, and that's what unbranded content is actually used for.
So I have because we are speaking about two different things, right? So one piece is the data component and one piece is the story. I am a big believer of the power of a great story, which we tend to do quite well on a brand perspective, yeah. But then sometimes we tend to, be even too clinical there. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a lot of power in the unbranded communication. At the same time, you really need to have that recall about your brand. So the two things needs to go together. What I believe we have not always done super well in the past was thinking that physicians only care about the data. And of course they do, yes. So people come into congresses, they tend to check the data, they really are there to check the clinical trials, but the data alone are not going to change the prescribing behavior. Ultimately, we do not take decisions based on rational thinking. There is a lot of emotion around it.
Exactly.
And also what I think for a long time we forgot is that we believe that people travel to congresses because they want the data. In 2026, you don't need to stay on a plane for 7 hours to access the data. You just click on your phone and you have them 20 seconds after they are released. So this is not why the reason why people travel there. I think that what we really missed, the opportunity we missed to understand is that what they want is the opportunity to speak about the data with their peers. Yes. It's not about the data. It's about yes, it's about having an open dialogue about the data. I mean, you become a scientist because you are curious by nature. And that curiosity is fostered not only by reading, the data, but having meaningful conversation around the data. Challenge your thinking, challenge the data. And challenging the data is a good thing, is what ultimately will provide better care to patients. So I think
because the data alone is not sufficient, as you said. I mean, it's the interpretation around the data that each individual healthcare professional might make, so that ultimately they will inform their future decision when it comes to prescribing.
Yes. And I think that this is also, the difference between, leveraging digital tool versus the Congress. In the digital tool, they are great for us because we can listen to the doctor, because we collect data about, what they are clicking on, what are the topics they are interested in. But by doing so, they do not feel seen or they do not feel heard.
Yes.
But sit and have a real conversation with us. That is our opportunity to make them feel seen and heard. So again, is how we create the best combination between the in-person opportunity and the digital leverage we have to create the maximum best outcome for all of us. Of course, as an industry, we have objectives we want to achieve. At the same time, we want to make sure that the doctor gets what they need out of this interaction and the information they get.
Yeah, I think it's a very good concluding point. I was just checking if there are questions in the audience. Maybe Josh, if you can let us know. But yeah, this has been a very enlightening discussion and very diverse, so yes, we have a question. So some people are still asking, why would you still need a booth at the medical congress today, and what separates a moment around that booth interaction that changes clinical practice from one that just is a memorable day but doesn't impulse change?
So I love this question. This is one of the questions that I always get. Why you even do a booth? We go back to the fact, this is about science and data, but well, have you been recently to a congress? So the congress is a place where you enter. The first thing you do is you print your badge. After you print a badge, the second thing you do, you look out for a coffee. That's like, human need. And then you try to figure out where the toilets are. Because you know that for 3 days, you need to know where things are, where I will find food, where are the toilets, where I can sit to have my lunch and check my emails while I do everything else that I have to do. For me, the thing is that in a congress, you have the space for the long, deep, serious conversation around science. That is a symposium. But again, in a symposium, normally you have people on stage talking, and then you have little space for question. And then you have an audience of, 100 people, 300 people, 500 people. Again, that tends to be a bit top down. A booth ultimately is creating a space. I go back to what I was saying before. You need a space where peers can connect to each other and industry and have conversation. And that's what we're basically giving them, a space where they can sit down. Also, we need to remember that in Europe, you cannot push your brands freely around. So the booth remains the space where you can, actively push your commercial content. And at the same time, what I always tell, people I work with, the congress is the exhibition floor almost. It's also the points where you are living all together with your competitors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is shared time that you have with them. It's also about how you position there. So do I believe we need booths? Yes. Do I believe we need booths in every single congress? No. I think, having a booth or not is really very much connected to your strategy, to the life cycle of your brand, to your pipeline, and what you want to achieve out of that. So that's my answer. You don't need it always, but in some situation, you really need it.
So you need to answer the why before you make that decision. Right. I think we're just going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Cristina, for your time today. And no doubt we might have some follow-up questions, which would be passing on to you if there is any. And I look forward to meeting you at the next digital pharma event in the next few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.